the Texans met with, or assuming they met with a lot of players at the NFL Combine. You're allowed to meet up with 45 players at the Combine, ask them questions, ask them stupid questions. We all know the stories that have come out from that. But the three names that have been reported for the Houston Texans, whether it was leaked by somebody, whether it was the Texans, whether it was the agents of these players, not real sure. But three names leaked about who the Texans met with. One, Kayvon Thibodeau, who everybody's projected to be a top 3 pick since everybody started doing mock drafts of the 2022 NFL draft. So no surprise there, right? Like we all expected Thibodeau to be somebody who the Texans would meet with. The other two are a bit surprising. Treylon Burks, who is the receiver for Arkansas, who many people had Burks being the number 1 receiver taken in the NFL draft until he had a subpar combine, and now I've seen him kind of plummet to the later parts of the first round in what is a pretty receiver-heavy draft class, especially in the first round. The third one might be the most interesting, though. Malik Willis meeting with the Houston Texans at the NFL Combine in Indy. And looking at these three players, the one that's the most interesting is obviously Malik Willis. And from my point of view, in my opinion, I believe this is calculated for Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio saying at the very beginning of the offseason, they're open for business at number 3. How do teams in the history of the NFL draft maximize trading down in the NFL draft? By trading down for a team that is desperate and hungry for a quarterback. We've seen Malik Willis, always had a great combine. We've seen Malik Willis as high as number 2 on some mock drafts, where his range is getting to the top end of the first round, perhaps even being a top 3 whenever you look at the range of mock drafts when you have. I believe Nick Caserio meeting with Malik Willis was by design. I don't think the Texans really have any interest in drafting Malik Willis, especially not at number 3. I don't think even if they trade down, they would want Malik Willis. And even if he slid all the way to the 2nd, I still don't believe the Texans would be interested in Malik Willis. I believe the Texans had an idea what they were doing there. I believe they're trying to sell Malik Willis to the rest of the NFL.
I don't think that there's ever a doubt that you never stop positioning yourself for potential moves. And I think that you're onto something here, but I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities that teams don't do this on a regular basis because they want people to think that they possibly could take a quarterback at number 3. They want people to think that they're looking for opportunities to look at all kinds of different players and not limiting themselves to an offensive lineman or a pass rusher or the top 3 picks in the draft possibilities. And therefore, with that, you put the fear of and worry into general managers' minds of as much as we think and that we know what they're thinking, we can never be too sure. And now we've got to pay special attention because we probably need to pick up the phone and have a conversation that we might need to get where they are. Otherwise, they may get who we want. And I think that is something that, to Nick Caserio's credit, if that is truly what he's doing, is a Bill Belichick type move. It's the reason why Mac Jones fell into his lap without ever having to make a move up, and do all the things that everybody swore he had to do to get a guy that he wanted. It's because he's done this time and time again. That there are we talk about when all of a sudden when you think a guy is climbing up the draft boards and suddenly some negative news comes out on said player and people press the pause button or they start bringing him back down in the draft. Those are strategic moves made by general managers, teams, and or sometimes even agents because they want their player in a certain circumstance with a certain team. I think Caserio is extremely cagey for doing it if he's done it that way, and I like it if that's exactly his way of thinking.
Guys, let me tell you real quick about Fitz Roofing. Fitz Roofing, dedicated and loyal to Houstonians. They're going to take care of you every step of the way, from a leaky roof to a full roof replacement on your business or your home, or maybe some home repairs, even a fence in your yard. All you got to do is call them, 832-521-3001. They're going to give you a free, no-obligation inspection. It costs you absolutely nothing, and they tell you what they can do to help you fix the problem. You want them to come back? You book them, and they are the best at doing what they do on a daily basis. Check them out at fitzroofing.com. Fitz Roofing, making a difference, one home at a time.
The best thing that could happen in the 2022 NFL draft for the Texans if Malik Willis is the number 3 pick of the NFL draft, but it's not the Houston Texans making the number 3 pick of the NFL draft. Those 3 names, and look, I'm not saying, like, whenever we do this exercise here, Kayvon Thibodeau, Malik Willis, Treylon Burks, of the receiver from Arkansas, who I was very high on. I still am high on Burks. Like, if he slides into the 2nd round, I don't want the Texans to draft a receiver in the 2nd round. But it is a player I like. If you can figure out a way to get additional picks, whether it's a Watson trade, if that were to occur, whether it's a trading down, I like Burks as a prospect, and I like him even more now because he's his stock is dropping, and I like selling or buying low and then selling high. But looking at those three players, not at number 3, but just like an avenue to get these guys, a scenario where the Houston Texans select Kayvon Thibodeau or a Malik Willis or a Burks, the receiver from Arkansas. Which of those 3 guys would you rather have in the Houston Texans next year?
I honestly think from the standpoint of best case scenario for the Texans, it would be the receiver because of the fact that if you pair him with his value with a Nico Collins and you really truly want to see what you have at the quarterback position with Davis Mills, then you want a guy that is going to be able to plug and play immediately because of his athletic ability and what he brings to the table at a position where you normally don't need as much priming to do with a player as you would with certain other positions. And so you bring him in and he can play immediately so you can make a lot of decisions on your quarterback, offensively, what you need to do. Your offensive line still has a lot of NFL players on it. It's just you played musical chairs too much a year ago. Now, whether Tunsil's on your roster opening day or not doesn't matter because Howard has played the position because you can get other guys and you don't necessarily have to draft them or draft them high. So I think with Thibodeau, you know what? His stock has slipped a little bit, but I think he's raw, and he's going to need a lot of work in terms of getting him to where he could be effective on the NFL level like he was at Oregon. So, and I think that from a quarterback position, if you're already evaluating Davis Mills, the last thing you want to do is put a guy that's going to be a massive distraction and problem in a guy like Willis. So that's why I think that the receiver would be the one that I would go to first and foremost as a guy that if I'm the Texans of the 3, that's the way that I would lean.
Yeah, see, I'm eliminating Malik Willis too. I'm not a fan of Malik Willis as a prospect going into the NFL. Thibodeau is so raw that, like, the only way you're getting Thibodeau is if you're drafting him at number 3, and I'm not sure I want to use the 3rd pick on Thibodeau. So I lean Treylon Burks too, like, because the path to getting Burks is more of a trade down scenario. It's more of if he slips to the 2nd round
you think
scenario.
He could slide all the way to the 2nd round?
I saw him today on a mock all the way. I believe it was 32. It might have been 31. Actually,
Wow.
I think it was 32 to the Lions because I thought of Brendan whenever I saw it. I saw Burks sliding all the way to 32 to the Lions. I don't ultimately think he's going to get to the 2nd round, but I could see a situation where the Texans, either if it's draft capital from Watson, I understand Friday's a very big day, whether it's the trade down. Like, I'd rather Burks as a late 1st rounder than Kayvon Thibodeau as the 3rd pick because that means I'm still using my 3rd pick on somebody else, of course.
Yeah, look, I think that overall where the franchise is as opposed to where it's trying to go, we've said all along the ideal scenario is to get as many assets as possible, trade down whenever necessary, but also be cagey and smart and savvy enough to realize there's a time where you're going to be offered a deal to trade down that you also need to be smart enough, Nick Caserio, to say, no, this is a guy that I don't care an extra 6 doesn't entice me to move on from a guy that I truly can make a difference in my locker room, on my football field, and on my roster.